Kenneth Kelly, Ken, founder of Counselling Tutor, a UK-based company. Ken, thanks very much for taking the time. Perhaps you could just very briefly introduce Counselling Tutor and what the company does.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Um, Counselling Tutor's 10 years old, and it started off as a passion project, really. Myself and my business partner, and the business's purpose is to help counselors and psychotherapists at student level with their training, with study resources and lectures, and then past graduation with continuing professional development and niche courses delivered online that kind of help them open new client audience segments. I guess that's where we spend our time.
Thank you. Now, we worked together for a year, roughly from the end of 2023 through to end of 2024.
Yeah.
And purpose of this call is just to document that and give people a bit of an insight into what goes on because we were talking before, and you gave me some quite striking numbers from at the end of the year. But I think we live in a world where numbers get thrown around left, right, and center. I think what's far more interesting is actually everything that goes on in order to get there, because as we're going to talk about it's a lot, isn't it? But um, you, what you told me from the last few months of this year is just some numbers that you've sent my way. Is that in week one of March this year, your profit was three times higher. It was up 300% from the year before. In February the year before, you had a 100% increase on the previous year, and in January 2025, the highest turnover month ever for the business. Um, and you hadn't told me that before, so I was delighted to hear it. Um, but obviously, everything that there's so much that we did, and let's start maybe with the goal, because I remember when we first worked together, I asked you what you were looking to get from the the engagement, and perhaps you could summarize what that was, what you were really looking for.
Yeah. I was in a challenging place because I'd built the business to seven figures plus, and I just didn't know what to do anymore. I was kind of lost, and when I looked around, the only message I was hearing was sell more, 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 get more out of the people, and it just wasn't resonating with me. I knew there needed to be another level, and I found you from a recommendation from a colleague who I really trust, and I'm really glad that I touched base with you because right from that first moment, that your way of working was not right. Here's what you're going to do. This is what your way was to understand my business and what my challenges were and what I wanted. And I don't know that I really knew what I wanted. You helped me clarify what I wanted. And when I looked at it, I said, I guess I want to grow my business and increase my turnover in a smart way. And in those early days, you mentioned we can do that. But I also mentioned I want to have a quieter life and be less involved in the business. And it was about weighing up how can that be done without the cost of me just having to give more of me. And you balance that beautifully. And I think what you did right in the beginning was not come in with a strategy and a way of doing things, but you took time to really understand my business, how it works, who works within that business, how the money flows, how the products flow. You really dug in deep to understand what it really looked like before even making any suggestions of how we might kind of work together and where that might lead us.
Your your stated goal. I remember when I asked you, what is it actually? And I remember you did have to take a bit of time to think about it, but you came back and said very clearly, I want to be out of the business.
Yeah.
I think you wanted to work a day a week or a day a month. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yes.
Um, but in short order, you wanted to be out of the day-to-day and into essentially a chairman position. If we just skip straight to the punchline, what's the current situation today?
I'm now a man of leisure, chasing my passion projects. I have a CEO doing an incredible job in the business. So, the actual goal, as we stated it, was that I would, from July, we started working together in February, that by July, I would be down to 3 days a week working within the company. It took a little bit longer than that because there was a challenge of SEO challenges that kind of hit a lot of people during that time. So I had to stick around a little bit longer, but not that much longer. We're now a year from when we started working together, and I'm exactly at that intended goal. And there's a second part to that goal that September 26, I will be free from the company entirely. I still hold a small seat in the business where I'm doing marketing, which I do happily. So we're well on track.
Well, that's fantastic. And as you mentioned, we did face, I mean, the entire industry really faced a
Yeah.
huge challenge during these 12 months, which was around SEO. And I mean, how much did your SEO traffic, your search traffic suffer? I mean, we at Storyline, we lost about 50% of our search traffic. I mean, how was it for you?
40%.
40%. Yeah, this seems to be how it shakes down. People either, I speak to people who either have lost around half or like 95%, virtually all, and I haven't quite understood what makes the difference. But um, well, why don't we start there? Because the disruption. If a business loses half of its traffic, you don't expect to then get a 100% growth on the other side. So, um, what was it about the work that we were doing that allowed you to not only not only survive that, but actually come out of it even stronger?
Yeah. Well, it starts with the strategy that you put together. Within that strategy, one of the risk areas that you highlighted was our dependence on search traffic, on our coming up in Google when people search for us. This was before AI really significantly hit how search is done, and the algorithms went a little bit haywire. So with that high risk recognized right early on, we got the team working on other ways of our top of funnel, get people finding us and who we are. And also, I think what's really important here is working smarter with the journey of those that do find us. So you shared that our turnover is up. So this month we're over 100% up in our turnover from last year. However, we had less contacts entering our funnel. But here's the thing, those contacts are the right people for us. So they're the right contacts, and they are converting better because they are the right contacts and because the messaging and the product placements are smarter.
And this is something that is is so it's almost hard to believe that when you're putting a strategy together that small changes and small adjustments really can combine to have such a huge effect. But it really is the case, isn't it? And just to put a pin in what you said, your traffic is down, you have fewer contacts coming in, and yet you're able to get 100% more from that because they're the right people coming in. And
Yeah.
and one of the big things that I remember we were talking through strategy, you mentioned that we identified that you were very reliant on SEO, but also talked a lot about counseling tutor and the role it plays in the market, what it represents for your ideal people, and the extent to which you were living up to that reputation in a way.
Yes.
And certainly from my perspective, a lot of the things that we put in place from from making the most out of content through to expanding your relationships with industry organizations through to uh, the way that you were using well, just content in general. There was a wholesale realignment really in how you started to show up as a company in the industry. So perhaps you could speak a little bit to all the things that we did there and what the rationale was.
Yeah. And this again is just another massive step that was not apparent to me. That our standing within our community, within our niche, didn't match what we were delivering and how we were delivering it. So what I mean by that is our those that took our courses that we delivered online raved and wanted to share that information with others to come and do our courses, almost gold standard courses. But you would never have known that by looking at our website or our social media or any of our channels. And the reason for that is because I built them myself back in the day. You know, the website that we were running on was the very same WordPress that I sat there uploading the files and creating a word and my wife did the logo for us, and it was still like that, and it needed a refresh. It needed to level up to the quality of our delivery, and we have subsequently done that, going to designers and taking the process that you suggested in doing that, and was really one of the things that really helped that. First of all, is recognizing that need, because I was blind to it. And secondly, you sharing contacts with me that made that a reality. And we now have an online presence which feels better, it generates trust, and when you're there as a client now, or prospective client, you're looking at a company and going, okay, yeah, this makes
Because
sense.
you were very much positioned as the, you know, one of the leading, if not the leading provider of this training,
Yes.
and yet as you very quickly realized when we started talking about it, you know, the website was, it looked like something from the 2010s, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
It was, you know, full of menus
Yeah.
um and it just didn't for someone in 2024, 2025, who is looking for this training, it's just not what you expect, and it feels out of alignment, which just introduces an element of dissonance in the mind of the prospect, and it's not a smooth logical journey, is it? Um, but it wasn't the only thing that we worked at, because obviously that involves you know, branding, website design, copy, but there was also work we did around your content strategy,
Yes.
particularly around the podcast and YouTube,
Yes.
and but then also the customer journey within that. So what other elements were there?
Yes. So as suggested, our organic traffic is much lower than it was, 40% lower. It remains 40% lower. We continue to put out good quality content. So that was part of the strategy, not to ignore this and go, oh, that's the end of SEO as we know it. Let's just focus everything elsewhere. So we're still putting out really good quality content. And what's really interesting, the contacts that are coming in from that content are nicely qualified. They are the right people. So that is smart, and we continue to do it. We also better utilized our podcast. And one of the strategies that we implemented there is every podcast episode, we would have a topic that we would discuss that we know is of interest to our audience. We would link that topic to something that we offer in Counselling Tutor. But most importantly, we created a custom handout for every single topic that we discussed. So every single topic we discussed had a free handout, which was obviously a lead magnet for lead generation. So again, our podcast started bringing in those qualified leads for the content that links into the products and services that we sell. So it's just a smarter journey. We then take our podcast and we make YouTube videos from the content. Again, we edit them down and we put them out. What we did when we first put them out is we noticed that they were showing up for for generic terms that the worried well might be searching for. So somebody who might be looking for some help with trauma rather than a therapist learning to work better with trauma. So we deliberately made them a little bit more boring and stated exactly who they were for. And you know what happened? Just as we expected, less views, but more views by the right people. And again, within those, every single YouTube video has got a call to action to go and get the download that covers the whole of the topic. And they are generating leads that are qualified and are linked into the products that we sell. So it's just a smarter ecosystem around our products.
And it makes everything more efficient, doesn't it? Because it always seems to me now, in hindsight, the 2010s when we all got used to having hundreds of thousands of views a month for free from SEO, and that was the way that we kind of built our businesses. But it just seemed kind of ridiculous because you'd have huge numbers of views, but then convert a tiny percentage. The overall efficiency in it makes for lazy marketers and lazy entrepreneurs, I think, in a way. If someone
Yeah.
throws you hundreds of thousands of views a month from SEO, you can find a way to monetize that one way or another. But it's very different from saying, well, how do we build an ecosystem that's specially targeted to our ideal customer, such that they discover us and then are just pulled,
Yes.
um, dragged through the sheer quality of what you're doing, and that's something that I see. I mean, I with many entrepreneurs that I work with, we're on that journey, but it is a mindset shift from the days of SEO, and I guess it's one of those truths that, especially when you've been doing business online for as long as we have, you do have to keep reinventing yourself, don't you? You do have to stay on top of trends and stay relevant.
Yeah, there was a time where it was more, 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 more contacts, more contacts. It burns your list now. I mean, even with your email service providers, you want to be sending emails and messaging to people who want to hear from you, because if they don't, they're going to spam you or they're going to ignore you, and it's going to hurt your reputation. Just as an example, one of the strategies you suggested involved us reaching out to others in our industry, so ethical bodies that counselors have to join to keep their license. And we receive around 130 referrals in so leads coming in from an ethical body. Now they come in as contacts, but they are so qualified that 25% of them convert into a sale. So can you imagine having a lead source where 25% of that lead, at a cold lead source, where 25% of those leads actually convert? I know it's not freezing cold, but it's just smart targeting as opposed to scattergun approach.
And it's what happens when you have an overall focus on quality. So quality of content, quality of product, quality of ecosystem and referrals, and and it's just a perfect case study of how you don't need a huge traffic platform in order to do really, really well. I think where we were successful in this project was the fact that it's harder to actually come from the way that business used to be and then steer the ship. I mean, that's difficult, and and it's very difficult to do by yourself. But all credit to you. I mean, yeah, I mean, we worked together on that strategy, and you. I mean, to be fair, we didn't talk a huge amount compared to many entrepreneurs that I work with. You didn't message me that often. You just got on with it and did it. So you have to take all the credit there yourself. Let's just talk about pricing briefly, because one of the reasons that we talked about how your turnover has gone up 100%, but profit 300%
Yeah.
to take a recent week. I mean, that is, as far as I can tell, purely down to uh, well, or to a large extent down to pricing leverage, because you've kept your costs the same for the most part.
Yeah.
So what role does pricing and customer journey play? What changes did you make, and why, and how has that fed through to the bottom line?
Yeah. Again, I have to go back to the strategy you provided. You identified our kind of top ticket course could be more expensive. And I remember when you brought that up, I looked at it and I felt instinctively if we put that price up, that it would lower the conversion rate on that product. So I put the price up on your recommendation. I thought, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to do this. And I don't know if you remember this, but I contacted you slightly afterwards and says, yeah, no, the conversion rate went down. And it did. It went down. It went down quite significantly. And I looked at that and I went, it's the price. That's what made that happen. And I remember corresponding with you at that time, and you said, you know, it's not always the price. It's sometimes other things around the price. And I had a look at it, and we were running that course at a time we had never run it before. And it was a quiet time of year. So I left the price at the new level for the next intake, and it went back to converting exactly what it was at the conversion rate it was before at the higher price. So that was interesting learning on how my gut does not always know, and blind areas, I guess, for me.
Well, it's also interesting how, the even the way that you framed it now is, you use the words more expensive. If you make the course more expensive, no one has a positive reaction to hearing the words more expensive. But again, if we look at the business in a holistic way, then from when I look at it, I see, okay, it's not a question of making it more expensive. It's about putting it where it needs to be in order to in order to be in alignment with your whole branding and your reputation. Someone who comes to you as a leading provider in this industry usually expects something at a certain level, and it's always the case that if you make it too cheap, people they stop valuing it so much because they have certain expectations. And it doesn't always work, but as educators, we are usually among the last to really acknowledge and appreciate the value of our own stuff, and we're the
Yes.
slowest to put the pricing where it needs to be. It's hard-nosed marketers have no issue with this. It's always like, million pounds for the course. Um, but again, it's great that you took action on that. And do you recall by what percentage we put the price up approximately?
1,100 to 1,600.
Okay, so it's at least a 50%
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's price elasticity in action. And again, this doesn't. It's not to say this works for everybody, but it's part of this holistic understanding of what's the value we provide and how do we make everything in alignment. Um, Before we wrap up, let's just. I found some of the finance things that we discussed very interesting,
Yeah.
and there's a couple of elements here because I think for growing businesses, this often gets ignored, financial management. But for seven-figure businesses, finance often has both the biggest source of pain, but also the biggest leverage if you get things right. So there were a couple of things that you talked about in terms of some very quick changes we did around taxation
Yeah.
and how to structure finances and funds that were just sitting there, but also a shift that you made from kind of we call bank balance management. You're checking the bank balance on your phone all the time through to full financial reporting. So perhaps you could talk us through some of the changes that you made there, which is especially relevant for any seven-figure business owners who happen to be watching.
Yeah. During our initial consultation before the strategy was written up and we started implementing that, there was a throwaway line of how you shared how we could work our taxation more smartly, of how I was taking my money out of the business. That put £10,000 into my pocket and £10,000 into my business partner's pocket in that year and every year going forward, just from doing it differently. And so that was a great win before before we even signed with you, which I'm very grateful for. Secondly, like you say, yes, I was not. I built this business by following the gurus online, and they tell you about lead magnets and traffic and selling, and they don't tell you about managing the finances within your business. And you kind of casting a light on that and helping with that was so helpful. The money that is in the business now works for the business in other than just sitting there as a dead weight, both in terms of identifying areas that it's a good idea to invest the money in that will result in growth within the business and give a return, and also things like rainy day funds being in a place that earns money for the business as opposed to just sitting there doing absolutely nothing as a dead weight. And you mentioned the understanding of the numbers. So the understanding of the numbers were like this. This is how it was for me. I would get my books from my accountant and I would look and say, yeah, we did okay this year. And then if I was feeling particularly unsure, I would look in my bank account, in the business's bank account. So if we got more coming in than's going out, and if we got some held profits in there, and this was how I was managing the money because I'd never been taught how to do that. Now I have reports that I receive that clearly indicate the health of my business. They give me a snapshot of the here and now, but not only that, that's the financial side of things. The KPI indicators, the performance indicators that we identified as being important are also in those reports and they indicate the health of the business that may, or anything that might be coming that's going to impact the business. And we've had a few times where I've looked at those numbers and said to the team, hey, something's not right there. Go and have
This
a
is
look at that.
this is coming
And
down the track.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And you shared at the very beginning of our talk about the numbers and what it looks like February this year to February last year, and how much more the turnover and how much more the profitability in that, and the what the expenses are. All of that is now a dashboard for me that I'm able to look at and understand.
It is
So
it is quite. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say, I feel that I understand my business, whereas before there was always a feeling like an uncertainty of I don't really know. Now I know.
Yeah, and it is like you said, we're never taught any of this. We, especially all of us were accidental entrepreneurs, never get taught financial management. But it is striking how, I see time and time again how people don't seem to have an expectation that the way that your books and your accounts are done should be in line with business. They should provide business intelligence. They shouldn't just be a set of obligations. You can organize your financial reporting in such a way that as the books are done, that tells you what your ongoing refund rate or gross profit or lead generation is. That they're most powerful when they work together,
Yeah.
and they really just the other great thing that does is it allows you to actually step back, right? Because now in your semi-retirement, you're able to actually manage the business from the books. This is the great thing about having reporting done this way, right? But you now don't have to log into your online banking or check Stripe or whatever, because you can see a snapshot of the business now and in the past 2, 3, 4, 6 months from reports that give you everything that you need. So I imagine it also provide. I mean, we've spoken about this, so I know it does, but it also provides a great deal of peace of mind when what you're trying to do is sit back and enjoy life a little bit.
Oh yes. Yeah. It's and also, I those profit margins are now set as KPIs. So my CEO is now accountable, including accountable for our refund rate that you just mentioned, where before I didn't know what that was. I would have to go into my cart software and look at it and go, "Oh, okay, that's not so bad." Now it's measured and it has to sit within a certain parameter. So yeah, better management, and I think I could not have stepped away otherwise. I would always have been pulled back in not knowing and not feeling sure, but that peace of mind is priceless.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, Ken. I mean, honestly, all credit goes to you for actually executing. I mean, you worked hard for for that year, but look what it's got you in return. So I'm delighted, and thank you very much for sharing your journey. If anyone would like to get in touch with you, how should they do so?
Ken at counsellingtutor.com if you want to ask me any questions. Happy to chat to anybody. And I just want to say, Ollie, what a privilege it's been to be mentored by you. I cannot recommend you highly enough. Life changing on so many levels.
Thank you. I will leave it there. I appreciate it, Ken. Thank you so much.